Live from the Eiffel Forest, we'll welcome race fans one and all back to Green Flag TV, where this afternoon we gear up to welcome a new league into the Green Flag TV fold. Big welcome again to Apex Hunter Motorsports and to their W12 Formula One series. My name is Lola Ramble alongside Ron Mons. We bring you all of racing action here from start to finish from the Nürburgring. Ron, it's a track that needs no introduction. For 99 years, this little piece of motorsporting history in the Eiffel Forests of Germany has been providing thrilling racing day in, day out, hosting one of the most treacherous courses on Earth with the Nordschleife and one of the most treacherous races with the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. Today, we go racing at the Grand Prix circuit where 19 W12 Formula One cars are set to take to the circuit as F1 makes its official debut on Green Flag TV.
And this is going to be a hoot. When you think about the history of the Nürburgring, the entirety of this motorsports cathedral, really, you think about the history of Formula One as well, whether it be here on the Grand Prix layout, originally called the Südschleife or Southern Loop, or whether it be on the Nordschleife, where many of the more interesting stories of note came from in the early years. This track is known for Grand Prix racing. That's the reason why they call it the Grand Prix course, after all. Last used by Formula One back in 2020 during the pandemic year under the name of the Eiffel Grand Prix. This is a track that we haven't really gotten to see too much of in Formula One over the past decade. That is the only race that we have seen around this place in the last 10 years. The last one before 2020 was in 2013. However, it's a perfect match. It is a perfect mix. And for these drivers, as we get towards the end of this season, they are certainly going to be tested as they try and tackle this circuit.
It's a true test indeed. Just over 3 miles or 5 kilometers in length, 12 corners, and each one different from the one that came before. The big thing outstanding today, of course, going to be the Mercedes Arena in that opening sector. Of course, that Mercedes Arena bypass in the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring and in most endurance races here. And then don't forget as well that final chicane, as well as the Dunlop hairpin. And you cannot, of course, forget turn number 1 at Hoghaken. All corners that are going to be throwing some challenges at these drivers here this afternoon as we gear up to go racing. For the second to last race, we come into the season late. It is round number 14 of 15 here on the afternoon. The championship has already been locked up. Jeffrey Lawler has been on an absolute tear so far this season, locking the championship up just 1 week ago. And with that said and done, at this point, it's all just last bragging rights as to who can take the final honors for race wins this season. But with Lawler set to go on the grid today, Ron, a lot of people are thinking he's going to be back on top again by the end of the night.
Yeah, and this is certainly a driver's track. You mentioned how pretty much every single turn around this 16-turn layout is going to test these racers. It's different than one another. There is no straight shot, no straight approach throughout any single one of these turns. Between the chicanes, between the sweepers, and between the hairpins, you've got a lot of things to worry about. Talk about juggling chainsaws. These drivers are going to have to do that while walking a tightrope here today.
Qualifying will be taking place in 3 stages today. First comes Q1. All 19 cars will be on the field. From there, the top 15 will advance into Q2, and the top 10 from Q3 from there. Each qualifying session scheduled to take place over the course of 30 minutes with around, I would say around 10 minutes apiece for Q1, Q2, and Q3, which realistically means drivers only really have about 1 or 2 attempts at a lap before they get those tires up to temp and before they start to burn off.
And I will say, when it comes to burning off, you're going to have to worry about the wear big time here on these laps. Again, talking about the nature of this track, those tires going to be worn down to the canvas after just about 1 single lap. The one benefit these drivers have is the conditions that we have here are very, very cool. Running November 29th of 2026 in sim date, right about the afternoon, but because we're in the fall, nearing the winter for our in-sim weather, it is about as cold as you can get. 66 degrees Fahrenheit for that ambient temperature, and that converts to roughly the same out there for the track temp. It is chilly out there, so that's part of the reason why we're seeing these drivers try and put as much wear and tear and much load through their tires as they possibly can to try and get them warmed up so you can hit the ground running here on your first time lap.
Q1 very much underway at the moment as drivers start to hightail their way up and around. It's going to be a relatively difficult qualifying session for a lot of drivers. An extremely crowded racetrack out there. Live timing, of course, is available in the YouTube chat, so if you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to do so. There is Kyle Blevins, a racer. Many drivers that, or many people that watch along with the Beer League on Wednesday nights will be very well familiar with. He was actually near the top of the boards in practice, so for a Beer League contender, wasn't expecting to see one near the top of the boards. He might be one to watch this afternoon to put the threat to Jeffrey Lawler.
Yeah, of course, the Beer League, another one of the fantastic leagues that we have covered here on Green Flag TV. They're now running Formula Fords, which is definitely a bit of a leap from this car, but there are some similarities to be drawn. Of course, open wheel machines, pretty tricky to try and handle. Definitely at a much quicker speeds here in these Mercedes W12s. One of the quickest cars in the history of Grand Prix racing. It can take any turn you can imagine at whatever speed you would like as well. We're going to get a sense of speed as we ride on board, hang downtown to turn number 1 with Mark Samat as he heads his way through that tight hairpin. Real tricky braking zone to try and nail down. We had our way off through the arena section as well. One of the alterations has been made to this track over the years, made it just to bump up the track length just a little bit. That section always bypassed whenever the Nürburgring 24 comes around. The original layout was the one that Nürburgring still uses for the 24 every single year. Taking a look at the back half of the racetrack now through sector number 2. That's the 6 and 7 S's down into the Goodyear hairpin. This is a Goodyear curve of turn number 8. This has a little bit of banking to help you out. Of course, the carousels are on the northern loop, the Nordschleife. However, it is still a section where you can carry a lot of speed. So too with the Michael Schumacher S9 and 10. Now having to take a brave pill and head your way off through this section. This is turn number 11 and 12. You can see up in 5th gear as you head your way through there, cross the DRS line right there, building the speed and building the momentum through the kink of turn number 13. Will be a little bit sketchy with that rear wing open now, slamming on the brakes, heading off into the Michael Schumacher chicane. This was one of the other alterations made to this track when the southern loop opened back in the 80s, and now one final heave-ho, one final turn. That right there is turn number 16. Maybe one of the more open hairpins on the lap, but still definitely a sketchy one as he completes a lap there, jumps up to 4th.
And of course, the other big thing to keep in mind for today, right? Remember, those DRS zones, typically in the race, you have to be within 1 second of the car in front in order for that DRS to activate. Not the case in practice and qualifying. You get full reign to use that DRS so long as you're within the DRS zone at your discretion. Critically as well, one driver running the medium compound for this qualifying session, Salomon Christensen, on the medium, the yellow ring compound here this afternoon. What do you reckon on this for a potential strategy call? He does have a penalty overhanging as well, and he's off the road and into the gravel.
Yes, I'm not sure if this is working out well for that driver, the 960 car. He may be on the back foot about halfway through this first part of qualifying already. We'll note there's another driver that at the moment is being marked as running on the mediums. It's Samuel Justin Wright, who's not out there on the racetrack currently. However, he may not be alone in that charge. We'll have to see whether Christensen can finally get a clean lap, but those tires certainly worn down to the canvas as a result of that slide. That was all through the Schumacher S. Got to imagine the curb had something to do with that. The curbs around there are absolutely brutal. Open wheel cars and curbs go together like peanut butter and cyanide. That is both not very tasty and not very good for your health either.
Harry Kronk able to go up to the number 6 spot with 1:24.746, but you're still talking almost 2 seconds off of Lawler. It's 0.7 of a second between Lawler and Marcus Keller at the moment. Heading down towards turn number 1, that's Edgar Acevedo, who's currently just starting his flying lap, running the soft compound, his second attempt at a flying lap. Phillip Allen just finished his second attempt at 1:38.033. Not going to be nearly enough to get on the boards. Think he still had some issues he was working on through his lap. There is Kyle Blevins trying to get a lap on the boards as well as he comes to the end of lap number 2.
Yeah, and building up the speed as he heads his way onto that start-finish straightaway. DRS not popping open there, so I think he's there. We go. We finally see it as he heads his way across the line. You know, an interesting point about the DRS, of course, has gone the way of the dodo bird in real life as a result of all the active aero and overtake mode that they now have in the current regulations. But when DRS was first brought out, in qualifying, the drivers weren't even just limited to the specific DRS zones where they could open it up. They could do it every everywhere. If you ever played F1 2012, you can open up that DRS in qualifying at any single point of the racetrack, which is a fantastic bit of news if you're trying to cause a simply hideous-looking accident.
It's one of those things where you try it everywhere, and then you realize very, very quickly why they have designated DRS zones on that one circuit. Edgar Acevedo trying to work his way out of the final corner this time by 125.254. A little ways off the mark. He will jump up into the top 10, though, at the very least. Remember, you need to be running at least 15th if you want to improve into Q2. Right now, 14 cars have put down times. Solomon Christensen, Connor Jensen, Samuel Justin Ray, Phillip Allen, and Kyle Blevins all have yet to get a time on the boards.
And what's tricky about Christensen in that 960 car, we mentioned the gamble that he did to try and run on the medium tires. He's got to feel his own sense of self-confidence because in practice did not get a competitive lap time in. The quickest lap time that he set that was valid was a 2:01.6 as he comes down pit lane once more. Time running out here in this qualifying session. I'm not sure if Christensen will be able to advance. That's going to be unfortunate there, but really it seemed like his qualifying effort was doomed from the start.
Phillip Allen coming to the end of his third lap. Only about 2 minutes to go now in Q1. And a 1:33.960, not nearly good enough. Still trying to get a lap down. Has not been able to get a clean lap in there. He is now on his fourth attempt as a result. Here comes Willie Gomez right now running 14th. Close to bottom of the barrel, needing to improve. Right now, 127.1. It's going to be slower, though. 127.4. He is having a torrid time out there.
Yeah, trying to pin the tail on the donkey out there on the racetrack. And right now, we're just keeping an eye on these drivers as they head their way across the line for what could be the final time. Eugenio Bayer Villarreal will jump up to P3 right in the dying breath of this session. Samuel Justin Ray yet to hit the racetrack. Willie Atkinson going to do himself some favors. He jumps up to 11th here right towards the end of the session. Only 15 drivers to set a time so far. So as it stands right now, it's going to be like a participation trophy in Little League Baseball. Everybody's going to get a ticket into Q2 as it stands right now.
And here you can see Edgar Acevedo trying to see if he can't get a time on the boards. Wants to see if he can get something up and rolling with himself here. There you see that predicted lap time on the right hand side of that lower third. Right now, mid 125s. So that's about on par with what he's been running so far currently. You actually saw him kick the tail end out there, and he kicks it out again. That is going to absolutely ruin this fourth attempt at a lap.
Yeah, that is going to slaughter the tires. These cars are tuned to the nearest millimeter, and the tires, they've got a little bit of give to them, but he can't lean on them too badly, especially here on these softs. Even with the cool track conditions, it is one that will chew up and spit tires out in the blink of an eye as Harry Kronz comes across the line there, looking to improve on his lap time. It's looking good. He jumps up to fourth there, giving himself some extra insurance as we get towards the end of this first part of the session.
And it looks like Willie Gomez, Solomon Christian, Connor Jensen, and Samuel Justin Ray will be the drivers that are out. Christensen just went off the road, and so his lap will be invalidated. With Gomez in the pits, that makes it confirmed. Willie Gomez, Solomon Christian, Connor Jensen, Samuel Justin Ray will be out of Q1 here this afternoon. So the top 15, Keaton Jensen on up, going to get set to go racing now for Q2.
Yeah, so now the stakes get a little bit higher because you see those gaps there towards that P10 spot in this first part of qualifying. Kyle Blevins, if this were Q2, he would have clung on to that spot just barely. It's less than a tenth between 10th and 11th here at the end of this session. So this could get very interesting, very fascinating, very stressful for these drivers as we get into the late portion. Thankfully, Blevins able to improve there right as we got towards the end, jumps up. So clearly some extra pace there in the 08 machine.
Frankie Franchica as well, running 13th, was dangerously close to being bumped out of Q1, but managed to get a time in that would get Frankie into Q2, which, by the way, I believe by now is fully underway at this point. So only the top 15 are allowed on track, but this means that the new time to beat if you want to make it into Q3, where Leon Flukiger currently stands, 124.917. That's just outside of the 2-second bracket from Jeffrey Lawler. But so far, outside of the opening laps, I've been struggling to see a lot of drivers improving as Franchica going to go into the wall.
Yeah, and that's one thing to raise about this racetrack. Despite the fact that it's certainly Grade 1 certification, there's not a lot of room to run or hide around this racetrack. You've got gravel and grass on the side of the racetrack, an occasional patch of asphalt, and that is just about it. So right now, if you find yourself going off the track a little bit, the consequences are certainly going to be dire. And with the tension being higher at the moment here in this qualifying session, that leads to those mistakes becoming a bit more of a common occurrence. These drivers going to try and hit the marks well, but there is such a razor thin margin that you've got here in these Mercedes W12s that one small little mistake, one step over the edge, and you know where you're probably going to find yourself. Bar ear.
Kyle Blevins, the next driver to come across the line. Right behind Blevins is Pablo Valenzuela Uribe, that is yet to come across the stripe as well. Right now running 9th. Haven't talked about Uribe too much on the afternoon so far. This lap does not look like he's going to improve, but should be able to get the hammer down and at least try to improve on the next attempt here. Right now sitting 9th, one spot away from the bump, and realistically only safe by about 0.4 of a second at the moment.
Yeah, and looking at the times that we had leading into this session, I think the bar of entry that you really need to make it into the next part of qualifying, you're probably I feel like you would be in the danger zone if you're anything more than 1.5 seconds off of the top time. So you got to pace yourself really well. Some of these drivers are going to have to look to take some pretty big nibbles out of the lap times that they have already set. Will these drivers be able to rise to a claim? That is the question that is being asked. Here with the track running, though, we're not seeing the track temperatures go up too much higher. I think we've probably gone up by about 1 degree Fahrenheit. As much as these cars are tuned to the nearest millimeter, 1 degree Fahrenheit is not really going to make a world of difference. So it's still just as cool as ever.
There is series administrator Alec Hinchcliffe, right now running the number 8 spot, has already announced he is likely not going to be present next week due to being on vacation. So this is going to be one of his final chances to realistically make some moves happen for him. Jeffrey Lawler right now making his way down the start-finish line, 1:22.755. That remains unchanged from the fastest lap so far on the session that he put down back in Q1, and so far no one has been able to get anywhere near it.
Yeah, so it has been, I wouldn't say flatlining right now, but he has certainly had a stranglehold on this race. In qualifying, pardon me.
Oh, yeah, stranglehold indeed. It has been absolutely brutal for this field, as it has been all season long, right? And, you know, when I was asking a little bit about how the championship was like, trying to get a feel of how things were like coming into this one, the description I was given was Lawler has been having his Max Verstappen 2023 season, right, of just sheer, utter domination, start to finish. You know it's crazy when they lock up the championship 2 races from the end when you have 5 drop weeks as well. That says a lot about what kind of a season Lawler's been having.
It has been flawless for Lawler. He hasn't really put a foot wrong all season long, so hey, may as well just round it off with 2 more bouts of glory before we look ahead to the next season here in this series. However, there's still some hurdles left to climb. We are halfway through qualifying procedures as it stands right now. Hinchcliffe coming across the stripe. He'll jump up into 7th. Nothing more. That's not a comfortable margin for him. He's going to hit the racetrack once again.
No surprise on that one. Needs everything he can to fight his way into Q3 right now. Flukiger still on the bum spot. Willie Atkinson almost a 1/4 second out in the number 29. Also on the bubble spot, you got Edgar Acevedo, Frankie Franchica, Philip Allen, and Keaton Jensen that are all down and out. How about Marcus Keller? Not Marcus Keller, sorry, but I believe it was Harry Crunk. It was somebody that just jumped way up the grid. Right now, drivers are starting to close, and for the first time, Eugenio Bayer Villarreal, who punches under 0.7 of a second to Lawler's pole time.
Yeah, so punch-out time, gotta give himself an extra bit of comfort as we get towards the end of this session. The main thing that these drivers are worrying about here in the second part of qualifying is trying to get themselves into the top 10. I mentioned it very briefly in the track guide I gave during Q1, and I'll raise it once more because it's a point that we do have to talk about, especially when talking about the start of this race. The nature of turn 1. Nolan, how many times do you think have official races ended in some sort of major disaster heading down into turn number 1 here at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit? It is so fiddly as you head your way through there. The track's falling away. It's very easy to lock up a wheel here in these F1 cars. There is the very high likelihood of some sort of disaster breaking out through turn number 1. So if there's any part of the field that you don't want to be, it is the mid-pack.
I would say the only track that's got a higher attrition rate for turn 1 would be Monza on iRacing.
Yeah, that's a bar so low an elf would stub its toe on it.
Franchica trying to fight his way back into the top 10. Right now running 13th. 125.373 needs to beat a 24.917. No dice this time, quite a few seconds off, in fact. Just behind him, Willie Atkinson. I believe just starting a flying lap for him. So the field is making its way up and around. There's Marcus Keller. Just got the number 2 spot on the board. You see him scrubbing those softs, trying to get them up to temperature here in preparation for one final attack. Try to see if he can't knock Lawler off the top spot here in Q2.
Yeah, so one final assault, one final attack. Let's see if he will be able to make it work or not, as everybody getting braced for what could be a very important qualifying lap. It can make or break the rest of the evening, can certainly make or break your Grand Prix coming up a little bit later on here as we see the drivers come across a stripe to start their final laps. Here we go.
One more attempt. Yet again, the current bar, a 124.917 set by this person, Leon Flutkiger. Trying to see if they can get a run going here with that 124.917. They need to do better as well to get out of the grid. Alec Hinchcliffe will get to 7th place on the boards. So some good news for Hinchcliffe, but he's not going to be able to realistically do more than that. Willie Atkinson at the moment, the closest car to come around and put down that final lap.
Yeah, so we ride on board and follow the driver of the number 29 car heading into the final turn right now. This has got to be a good lap here if he wants to try and improve and break his way into the top 10. Heading across the stripe, I'm not sure if it will be enough. Now, Flukiger heading their way through the final turn. This has got to be an improvement just to give themselves an extra little bit of cushion. This is where things get really, really stressful. I mentioned that you probably want to be about a second and a half off of your pole sitter. Lawler's kind of in his own zip code, so we'll say a second and a half off of second place. Right now, those drivers are kind of close to it. If Flukiger can improve by a tenth and a half, they will be within that margin as drivers setting their final times.
Arrive jumps up to the number 5 spot on the field. Mario Diavolo not going to improve as his lap was invalidated. The 0-8 to Kyle Blevins already relatively safe, but will jump up to the 5th place spot regardless. So the field is going to continue to try to power their way on through. There is Marcus Keller, number 2 on the cards. Not going to get a time in here on this one towards the end of Q2. Does have 10 seconds still technically before Q2 expires. So we'll start that final lap now with 6 seconds left on the buzzer. Although, again, safe to say, Marcus Keller very much secure into the top 10. Frankie Franchica, one of the drivers needing to have a good time, not going to get the job done, will instead come to pit road. How about Willie Atkinson, the driver on the first spot out? Can he beat the 24.917 to the line? No! Off by about 3/10. He will lose out and will not be getting a good run today. He is out in Q number 2. He will look to join the likes of Willie Atkinson, Edgar Kevido, Phillip Allen, and Keaton Jensen. Q3 underway.
And so now we get into cook time. This is going to be when these drivers have to cook. They need to get the good lap times here, so let's see who may be able to rise to acclaim. Once again, talking about the nature of this track, these drivers have learned that you can lean on it pretty heavily here in this qualifying session. Again, cold conditions as it stands right now, and that will come into play a little bit later on in the race itself when these drivers have to think about strategy. But right now, these drivers all worrying about how quick they can go out there on the racetrack. What they may be able to do here, they got to find an extra gear. They need to find something, which is a heck of a lot easier said than done when you're dancing with the devil at about 150 miles an hour.
And this Mercedes W12, the Mercedes AMG W12 does not do these guys any favors either in trying to get this thing up to 10. This thing is an absolute beast to wrangle around this place. But not for lack of trying here. Harry Kronk, you can see him currently working his way on his first lap in Q3, but he gets a little bit hung up on the curb there, you saw. That is going to do him absolutely no favors.
And so as we see this go on, I believe I just heard from race control that's only the top 7 cars that will be allotted out there on the racetrack here.
Interesting.
That will be very fascinating. I believe we only saw 18 drivers actually be a part of the session when we went to the first part of qualifying. So just shifting it around a little bit. So Alec Hinchcliffe clinging on to that final spot for dear life. And you look at that pack, it is very, very tense. Lawler still holding on to that very comfortable margin up towards the top. But, you know, outside of that, it is still the field essentially vacuum sealed together from their back.
On board is Marcus Keller, the driver that has been the only one so far able to get within 0.6 of a second of Jeffrey Lawler. Lawler, by the way, has not even gotten into the car so far here in Q3. Evidently very, very unbothered. And I find it hard to blame him, right? He's crushed it so far this season. You got over half a second advantage. I don't think he's got to sweat this at all.
You know, for a driver who's been so quick throughout this season, all he needs essentially is a bodily temperature roughly in the 90s, and he'll probably be able to escape with the pole. However, Marcus Keller certainly giving it everything. Whenever you ride on board with a driver in one of these W12s, it almost feels like the video is, you know, moving in fast motion. It is insane. The speed that they can carry.
I mean, did you see how late he was braking? He was braking at around 75 meters before the tightest chicane on the racetrack there. Even in the real world, you see most drivers jumping on the brakes around 100 meters. But 75? That is cutting it super close. That means he's got a lot of trust that that car is going to slow down when he wants it to.
Yeah, that he absolutely does. That is sheer confidence there in racing form, able to get every single inch, every single millimeter out of that car. Again, it's one of the fastest cars in the history of Grand Prix racing, at least when it comes to heading around a turn, as Krantz gonna take a look back on the turns he just went through.
Whoopsie daisy for Harry Krantz as he gets his way back out onto the racetrack. There is Pablo Valenzuela Uribe already out on just his first lap. You can see how much gravel has been dragged onto the circuit there, in particular on the exit of Woststeiner. That's not going to be any easier for these drivers to work their way through at all. That's going to really hamper lap times.
Yeah, that certainly will. One point that I'm shocked we haven't really raised up to this point is the worry of dirty air when you're running around this racetrack. It is insane. There was all the talk when the W11 was being run by Mercedes in 2020, how you would feel dirty air about halfway up the racetrack. It is insane. There's a lot of pitfalls that these drivers are having to worry about, the fine margins, very close-knit action, and also the many things that are going to catch them out between the dirty air, between the nature of this circuit and the gravel being strewn across many sections of this racetrack. Keep an eye on that as we go through the final 5 minutes.
Still trying to get the last one sorted. Oh, hello, off the road is the 67 entry there. That was Villarreal, who will have to go back to pit road as a result. Alec Hinchcliffe not going to improve on this lap either here, leaving just Harry Krantz to try to see if he has got some kind of an answer. But with only 10 seconds, I don't think he's going to have anything this lap either. So most drivers just on their out laps once again. So while we're waiting for the final, oh my goodness, says Yet another driver off the road, struggling and really showing just how much these guys are pushing the limits. Let's take a look at what's quickly coming up here on Green Flag TV before the tail end of Q number 3. Starting on Monday, tomorrow, the High Tide Racing League Truck Series takes to the Kentucky Speedway. Silver Fox Racing Late Model Stock Championship. We'll see the Southern National Motorsports Park in only its second appearance on Green Flag TV in its history. One track making its debut will be the Knockhill International Raceway from the UK. That'll be where the Beer League races this coming Wednesday. NASCAR Castle Glass Company Series action heads to Daytona International Speedway for their third Super Speedway race of the season. And then Speed with the Highline Diecast Cup Series will take to the Iowa Speedway on Thursday. And don't worry, the Apex Hunter Motorsports W12 Formula 1 Series will be back for their season finale at the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, talk about two very interesting circuits back-to-back to round this season off. The Red Bull Ring may not have the amount of turns that this racetrack does, 6 less to be a bit more precise, maybe a little bit shorter, but it is a stressful one. Speaking of, giving the both of us, I think, a panic attack via Real. Very, very brave, shall we say, heading down that backstretch into the final chicane, trying to scrub off those tires to get a bit more speed.
You saw, unfortunately, what he did do is clip the grass. That's going to dirty up those right sides for at least a few seconds, which again hampers you a little bit, especially near the start of the lap here. So doing his best, try to get one final lap in, 3 minutes to go here in qualifying before we get this show on the road. The number 16 of Harry Krantz crossing the line, 5 seconds off the pace though for the time being. Here comes Uraib, looking to just start his final lap so far. No joy for him. Is Kyle Blevins is not on a flying lap. That little twitch tells you everything you need to know where he's at the moment. Hinchcliffe looking to start one more as well.
And so 2 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock. This is crunch time for this field. They got to hit their marks, and they got to do it now. Following Villarreal as he heads his way off through the Schumacher S, down into 11 and 12 right now. There's been full commitment for these drivers, just hacking at those apexes.
Blasting up the hill and into that final critical chicane. Now through the Coca-Cola corner. And he will take to pit road. So Villarreal evidently not happy with the lap he was on. He will bail to the pits. Meanwhile, Pablo Velowen's Uraib, yet again, trying to see if he's got an answer on this final lap.
And right now, slotted in 6th here, will need a bit of an improvement to try and get his way up the running order just a little bit. If he wants to try and take that pole, he'll have to slash 1.1 seconds. However, if he wants to make up just one spot, all he will need is about 400s, even less than that, in fact, and that will be P5 for him here right towards the end of this session. He rounds his way through that final turn. What will it be for that driver of the 230 car? Comes across a stripe. Not sure if that's a representative time. Blevins, though, gonna look to try and grow the margin. This is looking quick for the driver of the 08. Clips the dirt, though. That, I think, may invalidate his lap time, and it will.
Marcus Keller, driver that's been put in the fight to Jeffrey Lawler, not going to be able to do so here in Q3. He does look like he'll try for one more attempt off the final corner. Krantz just starting his final lap. 34 of Alec Hinchcliffe pulling to the side. A 124.5 is a valiant effort, but it is not enough.
And so with time running out, unlike the other sessions that we had here, it is not going to be game, set, and match once the clock strikes 0. These drivers do have a little bit of cushioning to try and help them out. As long as they come across the stripe with at least 1 second left on the clock, they can try and see it through to the end. We follow Reeb as he heads his way through 11 and 12, trying to build up speed on the back half of the race circuit. The rear wing opens, DRS checkered flag flies, so this will be his final shot to try and jump his way up into that top 5.
Through the NGK chicane for the final time. Back to the Coca-Cola curve. Less than 10 seconds if he wants to improve on his best lap. 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Not gonna get there. Misses out by the smallest of margins. Marcus Keller, does he have an answer for Jeffrey Lawler? If there's something in the back pocket, it's coming now through Coca-Cola. Got to beat a 22.755. He will not beat that time, but he will also not beat his own. Eric Krantz, the final driver across the stripe. And with him also not improving, that will do it for qualifying. So qualifying through and dusted here this afternoon. Your 19-car grid is set.
Yeah, and what a qualifying session that was. Those drivers having to test the limits, but Lawler, as he has been quick throughout the whole season, once again grabbing a pole position. He's going to look to try and end this season off on the best note. He wants some more victories. He may have the crown, but he still wants it.
And no surprise, right? I mean, you want to get all the bragging rights that you can, especially towards season's end. So we'll see what Jeffrey Lawler is able to do. If he can get away well, though, on lap number 1, I would not be surprised if we saw him just run away with this one for what I've heard and seen from the past races so far in this championship. Of course, Hockenheim was not too long ago, and he went off on an absolute tear. I believe it was only somewhere in the realm of, 4 cars, I think, finishing on the lead lap in that race. Really going to show just how dominant of a run he can have when he puts his mind to it. So we'll see who's going to be starting where as main event action set to come about here as we go racing at the Nürburgring. Checker flag officially flies on the session. And let's take a rundown of your starting grid for racing action this afternoon. Lawler starts number 1. Marcus Keller alongside him. Front row of the grid. Then it's Eugenio Bayer Villarreal along with Harry Krantz. Number 4, row 3 holds Kyle Blevins and Pablo Valenzuela Uri. Row 4 with Alec Hinchcliffe. He is alongside Mark Samad. Row 5 heads up with Mario Diavolo and Leon Flukiger to close out the top half. Rest of the field up on your screen. 16 of the 19 cars took to the grid. And Ron, we get set for lights out here this afternoon, as it is going to be quite a journey here. 5 minutes to go in this warm-up session before we get this show on the road.
Yeah, it's a calm before the storm, before these drivers have to load bear for a 45-lap-long race. It's going to test these drivers' nerve. It's going to test their skill. Also going to test their minds when you think about the strategy games that could be played throughout this race. Cool track temperatures may be giving them some more opportunities, but only time will tell what this race may have in store.
We know that this race is going to be a tightly packed fight here on the afternoon, and I think that is something that these drivers cannot understate at all coming into this one here. What do you reckon outside of Lawler? Because let's be honest, that would be a bit of a cheap pick. Do you have any potential favors to be a dark horse on this race?
Well, I think you got to look on the other side of that front row. Marcus Keller seemed to be quick and confident, did the German there in that machine. Was also quick in practice as well, set the 5th fastest lap time during it. Of course, P2 there in quali. Of course, very different things and very different conditions as we head off into the race. The drivers going to have to manage their stuff a lot more. You bring up the strategy. Right now here in warm-up, Marcus Keller getting a bit more experience there on the medium tires. I think if anybody is going to give Jeffrey Lawler a bit of pain, it will be Keller there in that 1-2-3 machine.
And I think that's the other thing we got to talk about as well is the pit strategy. What tires do you start with? What tires do you change on to, right? I mean, medium, soft, hards, those tires are all viable options. You got to change to at least one different compound this race, which means we could be seeing some very sporadic pace differences from the start of the race versus the end.
You'll have to see what these drivers do at the very start of this Grand Prix. Try and maybe get those medium tires out of the way early. Perhaps we'll have to see exactly what these drivers do. Again, talking about the cool track temperatures, they're not going to have to worry about running on the hards. They're going to be real tricky to try and get into that operating window temperature-wise, because let's face it, there's not a lot of room to rest, especially when you head your way out of the pits. It is a constant barrage of bends before you head your way onto the back straightaway, and even that has a kink thrown in the midst of it. So I think these drivers going to stick to the softer compounds that may make the strategy just a little bit easier. It's a matter of when you pull the trigger and run those softs.
And then, of course, the turn 1 calamity is always a factor to keep tabs on here for the afternoon. We know for a fact that those turn 1 struggles are never going to be far away. It will take only one wrong misstep, one slight dab harder on the brakes into turn 1 to potentially clean out a boatload of drivers. That's, I think, the big thing with open wheel starts here, right? I mean, open wheel standing starts on iRacing have got to be one of the most stressful experiences you can have out there, especially when you get to the fast cars like these ones or in Indy cars.
No, it absolutely is. You've got to worry about a lot. You have to worry about managing that wheel spin off the line, because that will certainly come back to bite you on the hind end here in these cars, especially with the cool conditions to start off this race. You got to worry about the way turn number 1 goes down. I talked about the pitfalls. It's so inviting to try and get a move done in there, but that turn it lures you into a false sense of security. Whenever you think, okay, I'm going to try and get the move done here, it's usually going to end in some sort of tears. Any little bit of contact, it's going to be disastrous. You have to come down pit lane. Front wing damage and F1 car do not see eye to eye. You will slow down to be about as slow as a drop of molasses sliding off a frozen metal roof if you pick up damage there through lap 1. Also have to worry about the incident limits here as well. 17x until you pick up a penalty.
Yes.
No disqualification limit, but you do pick up a penalty every 6 incident points after that.
And I think, again, that will be part of the big key factor a lot of drivers will be keeping tabs on here for this afternoon. That incident limit can be absolutely brutal. And at a track like the Nürburgring, with how easy it is to pick up off tracks here, and when these W12 cars, with how much they like to track wide, not something you're going to want to really flirt with all that often. The one saving grace, these drivers do get 2 fast repairs here on the day.
Yeah, and so the fast repairs will give these drivers a Tempur-Pedic mattress to fall back on in case things do go slightly awry, but that's still not the greatest sense of security in the world. I always say this in reference to large gaps in a race, but I'll say this in reference to fast repairs. They're almost like a spare parachute whenever you go skydiving. They're great to have. It gives you a little bit of comfort, but in an ideal world, you would not have to use them.
Well, the warm-up session going to draw to a close, and the 19 cars on the day will start to grid on up here from the Nürburgring. It's the first ever Formula One race we have ever had here on Green Flag TV, and so far, from the 5 cars that have gridded, medium tires seem to be the way to go.
Yeah, and so again, those out of the way at the start. This may be the good time to do it as well. A little bit later on, maybe a try and go for glory. We'll just have to find out. This could also make it very sketchy on lap 1 as those tires try and build the temperature of the soft tires. They're basically like putty. There's a lot of energy that goes to them through every single turn, so you can build up the tire temperature in the blink of an eye. This will be a bit more of an uphill climb, so that's another thing adding into the tension that these drivers will be feeling once we grab that green flag.
And this is it. Drivers have gridded on up. Edgar Arquevedo will be starting this race from pit road. The revs will build. And it's go, go, go for the W12 F1 Series. One car doesn't get going to the back, and they're spinning around in the background. Couple of cars, in fact, not getting off the line well into turn number 1, and there's the turn 1 calamities we were worried about. A lot of drivers picking up some flack there and some damage in turn number 1 as they head to the Mercedes Arena. One more car off the road. That's Marcus Keller, the second place runner. He's lost the rear wing after only 2 corners.
Disaster breaking out already. We were worried about it, and it has come to pass. Keller, though, heartbreaking, has more trouble heading our way through the section. That right there is spinning out of control, heading out of turn number 4. It's been a nightmare start for some. It's been a dream start for Lawler. It was saying that Keller would maybe be the main thorn in his side. However, that damage going to end his chances rather early.
A lot of drivers picking up a lot of damage. We'll have to get a long look at what happened at the start of the race, but we'll keep an eye on everything out here first, make sure nothing else happens in the meantime. Side by side for the number 8 spot, Samad Hinchcliffe racing it out right behind them as Hinchcliffe trying to make a dive for the number 9 spot, but no joy.
And I was looking back at the initial incident that we saw at the start. Solomon Christensen was a driver that ran into the back, as we see pit stop going on right there. That's Villarreal coming down pit lane from second here in this race. Was just going to note it was Willis Gomez that he ran into the back of. Gomez just caught napping at the lights. So too there with one of the other starters at the tail end of the field, Connor Jensen. Did not get going off the line. So very rough start for those drivers in the back, but it did not get easier for the drivers who got going when they headed their way into one.
Well, for the time being, everyone has been able to at least make it through pit road, and we are through lap number 1 now in the books. Let's take a look. This is going to be what happened here to kick things off. Somebody did not go at the back end of the field. You're going to see one car hop up into the air as a result and end up pirouetting around because he just couldn't get the hammer down. And then from there, it was complete pandemonium into turn number 1. That blue car in the middle, Alec Hinchcliffe, lost part of the front wing. And here's Marcus Keller, and he just had his rear wing chopped right off.
Oh. You can see that car spinning around like a top as a result of that contact. It reminds me of the old side pod glitch on the old F1 video games. That was very bizarre as he headed his way through turn number 2, and the drama did not end. Sideways, slideways, spinning around. That was Harry Krantz there in that number 16 machine, looping it around. Do want to touch on this. I said this a few moments ago, but I'll say it again. That right there was Willis Gomez, who did not get going off the line, and the car that ran over the back of him was Solomon Christensen, who not only has had some trouble trying to get that car taken care of, he's also had some desperately bad internet connection issues so far. During that qualifying session, Nolan, I took a look at his ping. It registered 2,120, which I think is the highest that I've ever seen in my entire time in online video gaming.
Yeah, that's not it's not necessarily an ideal ping, as I think would be the technical term for it. Mario Diavolo driving her deep down the inside as well to get around Keaton Jensen. And also in the mix of this one here, Mark Samad and Frankie Francica also trying to make up some ground as well. So a lot of drivers race this one out here early on. A couple of the drivers that are forced to come down pit road for damage repairs have changed tires as well, by the way. Eugenio Bayer Villarreal has gone onto the hards. So is Alex Hinchcliffe. Marcus Keller actually running the softs now after coming down to pit road.
And that could have been the reason why those drivers decided to opt for the mediums from the get-go here in this race, thinking, okay, I'm waiting for a falling anvil to come down crashing right on top of my halo. May as well get these medium tires out of the way. The softs, I think, will make a solid run throughout this race, and certainly Geller looking to try and do something a little bit off kilter. That's what he has to do as we ride on board there with Solomon Christensen. Taking a look at that car right up in front. Gomez just got caught napping at the lights, was still trying to calibrate his wheel. You can see it turned all the way nearly to the right as the lights went out. And unfortunately, that's going to end his race from the get-go. That did not take him out of this race, however, because of those internet connection issues I mentioned earlier. He has been given an iRacing connection meatball flag, a fairly new thing here on iRacing, but one that has been met with some praise.
Down the inside, as you're watching one of the other battles taking place so far here on the racetrack. This is the one for the last spot inside the top 10 between Harry Krantz and Samuel Justin Ray. Samuel Justin Ray did not take part in qualifying, so for him to be this far up the grid, not a bad run at all. Although it is worth noting, a majority of those spots were made when his opponents met with attrition.
Yeah, but hey, it doesn't matter how you gain those spots. It's all that matters is that you got them. As we see trouble there, I believe that was Connor Jensen heading his way all through the stadium section. He was a driver that did not get going off of the lights as much as it was Gomez that was caught napping right around the car that ended up running into the back of him, right behind, starting at the tail end of the field. Jensen did not roll at all. Now, I think it worked out to his benefit because he avoided the drama like the plague heading off through the opening sector. However, it's the Mercedes-Benz Arena. It's always going to come back and knocking on your door in the middle of the night to try and wake you up and send you off into a very bad set of circumstances.
Francica down the inside of Keaton Jensen into the NGK chicane, able to pick up the number 7 spot right behind Francica. Now you also have Willie Atkinson and Harry Krantz that are starting to duke it out here as well. So this is turned into a 4-car scrap now, or they could even call it just a 3-car scrap for the number 8 spot on the road at the moment as Franchico quickly pulling away. Whoa, a huge look down the inside for Harry Cronson. Is able to just make that one stick. Pulls it up. What a dive into 8th.
What a fantastic move heading down into turn number 1. I mentioned that you can't really get those moves done because that section of the track at least, will bite and bite hard. However, being the lion tamer there is Krantz. Look at that. Getting the draft, getting the move done, had the benefit of DRS, and there you go, going for the lunge. Clips a coupon and gets a 2-for-1 deal. That's how you make it work for the 16.
That was absolutely incredible. And while we were talking about this one, Connor Jensen has had another moment. This is what has happened to him. This is through the NGK chicane, and caught too much of the curb on the way through the middle. Causing a couple of drivers to scramble to go evasive, but luckily, no one else collides with him. Battle for 9th still ongoing.
Yeah, still keeping it very tense right now. That right there, oh my goodness me, I thought they were trying to do a little bit of a shimmy as they headed their way through the kink. It's still side-by-side racing down into the chicane. This could get stressy, this could get dicey. Riding on board right now is Samuel Justin Ray, a driver who did not turn a single lap there in qualifying. Had to feel good about his chances. He was one of those that I thought was going to make a qualifying run on those medium tires. He's on the mediums right now at the start of this race, so too is the rest of the pack, as he looks to maybe try and go for a move into turn number 1. Not close enough. Through the braking zone go. Remain there in 10th is one in the world after there. Atkinson slow on exit and then finally gets it up and spun himself around in the blink of an eye.
That kind of tells me he was chasing the car through the middle of the corner and eventually just got too throttle happy with it on the way out. So Atkinson going to drop all the way back to the 14th place spot now. Tough break for him. So Atkinson with a long way ahead of him, and luckily not collecting Justin Ray in front of him. Mario Diavolo still holding on to the 5th place spot. Mark Samad hot on his heels in the battle for the 6th place spot, while Jeffrey Lawler already working a near 10-second gap at the head of the field.
Yeah, and so you know how we said that being out of the midfield scram was maybe going to allow you to just hit the ground running in this race, not have to worry about a lot and drive off into the sunset? Well, considering that P2 found himself at the epicenter of some trouble, I guess the mid-pack was basically anybody who wasn't Jeffrey Lawler, because he has run away with things here. Same case really throughout most of the season. He has been the man to beat throughout. However, this man, Kyle Blevins, in that 08 machine, I think he may be a strong contender, at least to be the best of the rest here. Very quick driver. He's showed some good pace throughout the night. And right now, he's kind of running on an island of his own. Has Leon Flukiger there in P3, but that gap is about 1.5 seconds currently. So I'm not sure how much we can really read into the pace of these two potentially being matched when it comes to pace.
Still have Diavolo and Mark Samad within 0.5 second now, as that 93 entry has managed to punch through that dirty air bubble and is now clawed right up to the gearbox of Diavolo up the road. Philip Allen has just had a problem. This is what has happened to Allen. He's dropped down a couple places as a result of this. This is through turn 1, and he just lights the rears.
Yeah, and much like a top, these things are very easy to just spin around in the blink of an eye, and that's exactly what has happened heading through turn number 1 on several occasions so far. And you know, we can't really say that we're too surprised. We talked about the elevation change through there as, you know, being something to worry about through the braking zone. However, just trying to get it on throttle, that is real tricky to try and pin down. It's like trying to catch a 3-legged chicken. Usually doesn't work out well as it's heading out the chicane. That ends in tears further behind. That was Krantz lighting up the rears. Had gotten a move done, but just like that, going to lose out on that spot to Frankie Francia once more.
He actually might have caught Francia as well. Take another look at this one coming up the hill. DRS in play. He's going to light the rears like you said, and actually does manage to avoid Frankie. Tell you what, good job of Francia to have managed to avoid that mess. That could have been absolutely catastrophic for the 098, so a good job to avoid the melee. Meanwhile, battle still on as well for 9th. Samuel Justin Ray applying pressure to Keaton Jensen.
And so keeping our eyes on this fight as we take a look at some of the drivers on the move. It's pretty much split right down the field. The drivers who've risen up like a helium balloon, others who've fallen down like a hot air balloon that just got shot at. And then you have Lawler running in the exact same spot that he started this race in. So too for Connor Jensen there in P17, but I think he may be a bit of an outlier in that case. Was making his way up the spots, but then quickly fell back down once more. So some of these drivers just trying to get the moves done here. Still only 9 laps into this 45 lap long race here at the Nürburgring. Is trying to get a move done here. That's Samad looking for it on Diavolo and able to get it done. That's the scrap for P5, and that is P5 for the driver of the 93 car.
And DRS battle going on here. 2 drives, DRS being Justin Ray and Villarreal is, hold on. And oh boy, poor Keaton Jensen just caught in the middle as an innocent bystander and all of that. That was only going to end one way, and it ended up pretty predictably, unfortunately. This is going to be on board with Keaton Jensen, and you'll see the terrifying sight behind him on the way.
Yeah, trying to pull off basically a knockoff version of the Mika Hakkinen and Michael Schumacher move at Spa back in the year 2000 on Ricardo Zonta. It's not going to work through that section, though, because it's through a braking zone into one of the tightest chicanes in all of global auto racing. Yeah, that move kind of felt doomed from the second the drivers tried to go for it. I commend their bravery, and it was certainly cinematic, but so too was a spin that followed.
Speaking of spins, Samuel Justin Ray around again, and at the moment struggling. I think he's just completely cooked those rear tires at the moment. You see him every time he lights it up. He's just struggling to get the hammer down. Side by side, meanwhile, Marcus Keller, Keaton Johnson going at it again as Keller takes one around the outside.
Yeah, certainly brave and trying to go for the fight back there into turn number 11. Not close enough. You can't really get a move done through there. The speeds are just too high. That is a medium speed turn for these cars. You wouldn't think it considering how sharp those turns are, but that is certainly the case as we now ride on board. This is a chase down, heading down the start-finish straightaway. Diavolo with the DRS, able to get it done. Maybe into turn number 1. Not into it. Maybe on the exit, though. You can see running a little bit wide there is Mark Samad. Now feeling some pressure once more as they head their way through the Mercedes-Benz Arena. I think Samad may be able to hold on to this P5 spot for now. This fight is looking to explode soon.
A lot of sparks flying out of the underside of Diavolo's car. You have to wonder if maybe it was one of those pieces of contact. It picked up some underside damage there that he's nursing at the moment, because those were not sparks that we saw coming out of Samad's car. But it looks like whatever the issue is, it is not hindering at least his midfield pace for the time being. Kyle Blevins has got to worry a little bit more about the competition from behind, because he's got Leon Flukiger steadily reeling in that gap to him.
And so this gap was about a second and a half not too long ago, so it has now been cut down to a third of what it once was. Looking as well, if we hold on to this shot for a little while, you'll be able to see a couple of scrapes on the side of Blevins' car. We saw him get involved in some fights earlier on. I think there may be just a little bit of damage on the other side of this machine. You'll be able to see it on the small little... There you can see just some small scraping there on the side. You can see the gray spots on it. That's a good view of it. There you can see it right there. That's not any sort of design on the paint scheme. iRacing will let you do a lot with the cars. Won't let you do that. That is side pod damage. And again, talking about the nature of these cars, look at how complicated it is there on the side. It's like a 500 by 500 Rubik's Cube. One small little mix-up, and it's going to take about an hour to solve.
One problem, I don't think you can solve the Rubik's Cube if it's only got one color. I can hear your gears turning, trying to come up with something for that, but you know I'm right. It's got one color on it. You can't solve a Rubik's Cube with one color. It's already solved for you.
We shall call it a glass jigsaw puzzle there at the side of that car, because they're both very fragile.
In a pit road is Willie Atkinson going on to the soft compound here this afternoon. So this looks like it might be a scheduled pit stop after only 11 laps of running. You'd think that would be a stop you'd want to make around lap 11 if you were running the softs, not on the mediums going to the softs.
Yeah, no, you'd expect this stint to be just a bit on the longer end, probably trying to make it at least past the halfway mark. So, gotta wonder what the deal may be there. As we could see, checkered throughout the field, we've got Villarreal now running on the hard tire. So too with Alec Hinchcliffe trying to make it to the end. That could be fascinating. As look at the dive there, adding off. This could nearly end in disaster. I don't like the looks of this one bit.
That's Marcus Keller making great use out of those soft tires as he powers around the outside of Eugenio Bayer Villarreal, who was still running on the hard compound since lap 9 of this race. Keller went on to the soft on the same lap, so no surprise that Keller was able to make short work of Villarreal here. So as that battle looks like it's going to come to a close, it is still mediums being the predominant tire all throughout the field so far.
Yeah, so these drivers have certainly been fairly uniform when it comes to their picks here at the start of this race. I will say as well, touching on something that could definitely affect the way things go, just had a quick little gander at the incident points at this moment here in the race. Villarreal currently running 6x here at this stage of the race, so things may not go in his favor if things continue that way. Again, 17x is a limit until you pick up a penalty. So, I mean, that can be procured rather quickly, especially here around a racetrack like this. You have one small little off track every other lap, and next thing you know, you're picking up a penalty late.
Battle for second underway. There's the dive. Leon Flukiger down the inside of Kyle Blevins. And Flukiger into the number 2 spot as Kyle Blevins going to drop back to 3rd. Now we'll see if Blevins can power back. He's been running 3rd a lot of the night. Or 2nd, sorry, a lot of the night. Qualified in the top 5. So we know Blevins is quick here. And we'll see if he is able to fight back and maybe hang on. If he can stay within range until the next DRS zone, might be able to start to track Flukiger back down.
Yeah, that could be the case. At this point right now, all you got to do if you are Kyle Blevins is just stay with it. Wait for those pit stops. Maybe pick up one of those 2 fast repairs. That could be a good decision because the damage on the side of those cars, it is not a good prospect whenever you have damage on these Formula 1 cars. Just open wheel cars, period. I always mention this. There's a league that I cover that covers Formula 3 cars, one of my favorites on the iRacing platform. And if there's a small little tweak to the front wing on that Dallara F3 car, your pace is going to just fall off a cliff. These F1 cars, the amount of small little just microscopic in the grand scheme of things, bits of aerodynamic work, bits of carbon fiber to try and keep this car stuck to the road, any small little tweak to that, especially to the floor or the side pod, is going to be huge. The one benefit these cars have compared to the W13, the older sister that came around in 2022 to these cars in 21, is that the downforce is a little bit more distributed as we see Krantz once again with trouble heading out of the final chicane. It's another spin. We saw him run in trouble multiple times, just lighting it up on the rear tires. This number 16 driver not been able to master the exits of these turns. It's the outside curb that does it this time.
Tough break for Harry Krantz. He's going to have to try to do that again. Already, by the way, almost 1/3 of the way through this race, working lap 14 of 45. The laps absolutely fly by in fast cars like these ones. Now, to your point about how fragile open wheel cars, there are a couple you could kind of get away with a little bit more. The Skip Barber Formula 2000s were well known for being able to take some abuse. The Formula Vs and the Ray FF 1600s, they can take a bit of a knock or two. I've actually seen some pretty physical fighting, all things considered, in the Dallara IR18 as well. So there are cars that can take the abuse, but they tend to be more on American-based series, not so much cross-country European ones.
Yeah, no, I think the main benefit that the Skip Barber, the Formula V, and the FF have is the fact that, I mean, if you duct taped a Formula 1 die-cast car to your helmet and then hopped into one of those cars, you'd probably be able to triple the downforce generated by them. They're very simple race machines. Once you get into the really aero-heavy cars, that's when you find yourself in a world of trouble. Even with that IR18, Those cars are definitely built to take a bit more of a pummeling compared to some of their European counterparts. As we take a look, Connor Jensen once again looping it around as he headed his way out of the turn. It's been a problem all throughout this race. These drivers just looping it on exit. There's a lot of power that you need to put down here in these F1 cars, nearly 1,000 horsepower for crying out loud. Even if you're on the lowest energy deployment settings heading out of these turns, that is going to be a mahoosive kick up the back end.
By the way, Connor Jensen extremely lucky to keep it off the wall there. You saw that as well, Ron. I hope the fact that, I mean, you had to been, what, a foot or less away from the tires, so extremely lucky on that one. Leon Flukiger is still within DRS range to Kyle Blevins, but at the moment, lap traffic kind of breaking up the battle, and it looks like Flukiger going to finally manage to pull out of DRS range. So Kyle Blevins, try as he may, has not been able to run down the 99, and it looks like this might be game over for Blevins until Flukiger makes a mistake or until the pit strategy comes along to shake something up. As, hello.
You can see big smoke.
That's Willie Gomez off the road at turn 1. And he got another one going around right in front of him now. That's Connor Jensen. They're fighting for position.
Yeah, those two drivers have been through the ringer so far here in this race. Gomez, of course, involved in that incident at the start. And Jensen may have gotten a piece of that if he actually got rolling off the line. Both these drivers have had to worry about a lot. As you can see, that right there wasn't on exit, it was on entry. Big overslow as he headed his way through there. Very easy as you're downshifting big time, going from about 7th or 8th gear down to about 1st or 2nd to just lock up that rear axle. Bad engine braking. There's a lot of different settings you can change in these F1 cars to adjust that engine braking, but there's only so much you can do in the heat of battle.
Connor Jensen spun out again 2 turns later, and from there took the toe. So I think he has decided, yeah, I'm kind of done with this one. Jeffrey Lawler resetting. Fastest lap of the race, a 1:26.031 for the driver of the number 8, who continues to bring the Nexus Esports number 8 car to bear. And yet again, absolutely curb stomping this field.
Yeah, what a performance he is putting on. Is remaining consistent, remaining clean, and just keeping his nose firmly locked onto that grindstone. As much as we've talked about some drivers maybe having their fair share of incidents so far here in this race, Lawler, he's been perfectly clean. I would not be shocked if he continues on this pace. He could very well end up with a 0x at the end of today, which is really just an all-inspiring performance. Looking at the lap times as well, consistency is not only his key, but he is speedy as well. Despite the fact he's 16 laps into this run on the harder of the harder of the 2 tire compounds that we see drivers run at the start. Of course, we do have the hards for some racers out there in the pack. Despite the fact he's running on the mediums that are now 16 laps old, was able to set his personal best lap of the race last time by at a 1:26.031. He is absolutely nailing it right now. And by the way, that personal best lap of his is the best lap of the entire field. He set that 16 laps in on tires that aren't exactly factory fresh.
Correction, just reset it again, 1:26.008 for him now. While all that is going on, the battle between Keaton Jensen and Alec Hinchcliffe has been picking up big time for the number 10 spot. There's only a quarter second between them. Hinchcliffe tried to make a look at the chicane last time through. Was not able to do it, though. But he is really wanting to see if he can't get something up and working with him here. Hinchcliffe wants a top 10.
Yeah, and does he have the pace to try and get it? I think he does. That number 34 car, we saw him quite impressive in qualifying a little bit earlier on, having to get this move done on Keaton Jensen, as it's not going to result in a battle heading down into turn number 11 and 12. However, Hinchcliffe going to have the benefit of the DRS right about now, going to open up the rear wing and try and get a good run. Thought about going for it heading into the kink. He does go for it heading off into the kink. Oh my goodness me. This is going to be a fight heading into the braking zone, and Jensen going to say, nope, not going to go through here side by side. There's many things I will do. I would rather lock myself in a phone booth with a rabid hyena.
It didn't even, Alec Hinchcliffe didn't even have to use the DRS on that one because of how effective he was. Now, it is worth noting Jensen is running on much more worn medium tires. Hinchcliffe on some fresher hard tires, so we could be seeing the tire fall off from those mediums finally starting to kick in, and the longevity of those hards starting to come into play.
And so those hard tires finally coming into form, despite the fact that track conditions have been stunningly cold and still remain that they haven't gone higher than about 68 degrees Fahrenheit so far here. So these drivers aren't exactly having to worry about the tires.
Oh boy. I think Harry Cross may have just backed his W12 into the wall. He is towed.
And let's take a look at it here. Once again, it's heading out of the chicane, and at this point, I'm gonna be honest there, Nolan. I think his give a damn may have just broken.
I still can't tell if he hit that wall or not. I don't think he did. I think he actually got it stopped just in time, but boy, it was a little bit close for comfort, no doubt about it.
Yeah, definitely sketchy, that is for sure, but either way, Kron's likely going to end his race right then and there. So too Connor Jensen, who's down a pit lane currently. So that leaves about 15 cars out there on the racetrack as we get towards the next portion of this race, where pit stops could be aplenty. Going back to the tire discussion, track temperatures still remaining cooler than ever. So these tires aren't exactly, disintegrating actively for these racers. That's part of the reason why Lawler still is able to set some very competitive lap times, consistent lap times at that. But even taking him out of the equation, taking the alien out of the fight, Flukiger running in P2, able to set their best lap of the race just last lap at a 127.0. We'll see how it is coming across the line once more. Yeah, only 0.02 of a second slower. So even though these drivers are running on tires that are nearly 20 laps old, they're not exactly dealing with a disgusting amount of grip loss.
And I think that's kind of why we're seeing these drivers put on the pressure a little bit more than they have been. Here comes some pit stops. Frankie Francia down into the box this time by.
So some more drivers coming down pit lane. Many of these racers that we see were ones that found themselves in the midst of either very hard battling or a couple of unfortunate incidents that caught them out earlier on here in this race. That was my bad for starting off my day right by drinking an entire bottle of super glue. But as we see him rejoin the field, gotta wonder when we're gonna see some of these racers come into the pits. Gotta wonder how the soft tires are feeling for some of these competitors, because we've talked at length about the medium runners. I want to focus on Marcus Keller, who's running on the softs. He's not dealing with tire fall off either. Set a 126.1, one of the fastest laps of the race, just about a lap and a half ago. So the tire fall off isn't exactly a major worry for these racers, which is part of the reason why I was expecting them to pretty much run on either the soft or the medium. Wasn't expecting anybody to try and tempt fate with the hard unless they want to come down pit lane about 5 laps in and see it all the way through to the checker.
At the moment, Marcus Keller running on his 18th lap with these soft tires as well, by the way. He had to use a fast spare early on, remember, when he had his rear wing chopped off at the end of lap number 1. And it was when he came down pit road that we saw him jump onto the soft tires as well. Figured he may be able to get some extra speed out of it. And so far, that speed has been working rather well for him. He's been doing a good job on just trying to weather the storm and they'll kind of keep that car moving on up to the number 7 spot. So Keller at the moment not on a bad recovery drive by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, so Keller putting in a good performance. We saw that he was going to be quick. We knew that he was going to be quick, and when it comes to the pace department, he still certainly is, but just bad circumstances early, catching him out dearly. That's part of the reason why the gap up at the front is as massive as it is. There's no bridge at the moment. He was the bridge, emphasis on the past tense there in the case of that sentence.
Another battle for position underway. Keaton Jensen looking like he's about to come under fire again, this time by Phillip Allen. Jensen, based on how much he's dropped to Alec Hinchcliffe, I have to imagine that Jensen's just burned up those mediums too aggressively in the early portions of this race, and now he's paying the price for it.
Yeah, that he definitely is. I think if you do overclock those tires a little bit, the worry that you have, despite the fact that track is virtually ice cold by iRacing terms, if you get those tires to be a little bit too hot, just get them slightly north of that operating window. What opportunities do you have to cool them off? You've got the start-finish straightaway. You've got the run between turns number 12 and 13, and then 13 and 14, that back straightaway, and that's it. There's really no spot for these tires to reasonably take a breath. It is an endless barrage of turns. So if you get those tires out of the operating window in a bad way and you overheat them just ever so slightly, even if it's by a little bit, that's just going to create a sort of snowball effect. Look at this one from Allen.
Round the outside, and then you get chicane, near contact between the two. I think they did touch, as Jensen, I think, pushed Allen out wide and forced him to cut the corner.
And there you can see it worked out beautifully to try and get the run, but not going to be able to get the move done. Now he's going to be on the fight back, trying to make something work, as I believe Allen may have potentially... Yeah, we'll take a look at the replay. Yeah, I was thinking that he went down pit lane. That he did.
Yeah, a little bit of a dive there. This is going to be the look on board with what happened. This is Keaton Jensen. Watch as he comes around the outside, and he did. He gave him a little bit of a nudge right to the side pod.
Yeah, but again, side-by-side racing off through that chicane, it is near on impossible to try and go through there in these large F1 cars without a little bit of contact. When they added that chicane in way back in the day, you were able to do it. It was stressful back then, but you could make it work if you had luck on your side. Nowadays, though, whoever is, behind by the time they turn in, you pretty much have to back out. Otherwise, contact is less of a likely thing and more of an inevitability.
By the way, halfway home now as well as racing action continues on. This fight for second, picking up again, has gone absolutely nowhere. And Flukiger, he was able to kind of get out to about a second, but he hasn't been able to get much more than that. Flukiger at the moment feeling some more pressure on Kyle Blevins. This is not looking good for him, as Willie Gomez has been black flagged.
Yeah, I think Gomez may have hit the incident point limit. We saw him get put through the ringer here in this race, and he may have finally stepped over the edge. That 17X, as we were talking about a bit earlier on here, Nolan, does come up on you very, very quickly. Unfortunately for Gomez, it has been a rough run. This is a tough track to try and master. Incredibly, incredibly difficult to try and learn. We were talking about it a little bit before we went live. Despite having done probably hundreds, if not thousands of laps around this track in my time racing it in various different sims and games, I still feel like I barely know how to get around this place without crashing.
And I think you and I are both talking that the real thing that throws a wrench in the works is the Mercedes Arena. It did not used to be here, and obviously there's a reason why a majority of the road racing series that come out here, they just bypass it altogether, including the 24 hours in the Nürburgring where they come out here on an annual basis. They just bypass that chicane altogether, and for good reason. I don't think a lot of people have a lot of enjoyment for that Mercedes Arena section, and I gotta be honest, it falls in that category for me too. I think it breaks up the flow on what is otherwise a pretty good circuit.
Yeah, now the worst part for me as well is visibility. Now, granted, my eyes are not very good. I think there are certain occasions where I'd probably see better if I swapped my eyes and my feet. However, heading your way through there is virtually blind on entrance or exit through every single turn. It is super tough to nail down. You basically have to turn in and hope that the corner is actually where you just went. If not, again, those incident points are going to rack up very quickly.
Marcus Keller using DRS going to get around the long way of Mario Diavolo as they made their way through the corner, and how about that, immediately bailed at the pit road. So past the halfway point, I think what a lot of drivers are doing here that are still on the mediums, they're trying to stretch those mediums so they can be on the softs to the end of the race. Now, Marcus Keller has been on the softs for a good chunk of this race early on after having the rear wing chopped off. Now we'll see what tires he goes on to this time. But do you think he just recommits to the softs? I think I would. You ran 23 laps on the once. Why not do it again?
And so let's see what he could be able to do. Yeah.
Yeah, no surprise there. Remember, you do have to change your set of tires. Correction, you need to change your tire set at least once. And, well, he did that earlier. He started on the mediums, went to the softs when he came to pit road for damages. So no reason to not just run to the softs from here to the end.
Yeah, I'm liking that call. These soft tires, well, the tires, period, have not been put to the test. They've been running fairly consistent. The track's cold. The tire wear isn't all that high. You may as well just end off this race on a good note, as Gomez very slow on pit exit there. I think he was trying to let some racers by heading down that start-finish straightaway, still trying to learn the ropes and get used to this combination, eventually going to tow back to the pits. But you may as well peak at the right time, put those soft tires in at the right spot as we have trouble out there on track.
That time it's Philip Allen spinning out of the 14th place, well, down to the 14th place spot now. He was in 13 before. Samuel Justin Ray has managed to make the move on him. And whoa, hold on to her, buddy. And that is going to effectively ruin any chance those softs had of being effective.
You know, outside of the Mercedes Arena section, the one section that always gets me is through turns number 11 and 12, because it feels like it's somewhere in that no man's land between medium and low speed. It is real tricky. We have seen all throughout this race, and certainly in qualifying, the dedication those drivers would have to be able to just lick the stamp and send it through there. However, they're definitely having to they're having to keep their fingers crossed while holding onto the steering wheel. There is no room to run or hide through there. You may have the benefit of some asphalt runoff, but whenever things do go bad through there, the consequences are going to make themselves known very quickly. We just saw that there with the spin. It's better to spin on entry than on exit, though, because if you spin on exit, the tire bundles there on the left-hand side will chew up and spit your car out just like that.
A lot of people tuning in to watch the first ever Formula One race here on Green Flag TV, and of course, the first ever race for the Apex Hunter Motorsports W12 F1 Championship. This is race 14 of 15. The season finale will be next week. No championship battles, unfortunately, for us to keep tabs on, as, well, Jeffrey Lawler has gotten his championship effectively locked up. Kyle Blevins in a pit road. He's been running on the mediums from the green flag. He will jump onto the softs and make his way back out onto the circuit.
And you can see right there, able to pick up the faster pair is trouble heading out of turn number 7 there. That's nearly going to end in tears. Small little hop skip to jump through the gravel trap, but taking the faster pair, trying to get that small little bit of side pod damage fully hammered out. Works out well as Keller going to get the move done on Francia, heading down into turn number 1.
And Marcus Keller, yet again, utilizing those softs, 5 laps fresher than the car behind him, so able to make pretty short work of them. What do you reckon? You reckon Keller can find his way to a top 5 before the end of this one?
Ooh, that is a very good question that you proposed there, Nolan. I think he will have the speed and the confidence to be able to make it work. When during that last stint of the race, I was going through the lap times, figuring out who was doing what, how the tires were faring, whether anybody was suffering any form of tire fall off. There were 2 drivers that were in the 1:26 bracket. It was Marcus Keller, who joined our current race leader, and the other man to do it, Jeffrey Lawler. So those 2 drivers have been very quick, kind of in a league of their own when it comes to pace. However, much as Lawler has had the benefit of being up towards the front, that has not been the case so far for Keller. I think he can definitely make a charge with the pace that he has, still has the benefit of time after all.
Pablo Valenzuela, Uri. There we go. I got it right all through qualifying. Apparently can't get it right in the race to save my life. But going on to the soft tires as well after the mandatory pit stop. Making his way back out onto the racetrack. Mario Diavolo and Kyle Blevins close in a fight. Now, I'm expecting Blevins to make very short work of Diavolo here, because remember, Diavolo still has yet to come down pit road running very old mediums. Blevins is on only 1 lap old soft, so if he's not by him by the end of this lap, I'm going to be shocked.
I will be a little bit surprised, but the real tricky thing with getting the overtakes done here at the Nürburgring is doing it in a way that results in 2 clean race cars coming out on the other side of it. We have seen drivers go for some moves that ends in tears. Haven't seen a major collision yet. However, these drivers are definitely playing with fire. You can see they nearly went side by side heading into turn number 11. Now through turn number 12, small little pickup of some grass. However, going to keep the momentum rocking and rolling. DRS open. This is going to be a hard charge down the inside, heading off into the chicane. Going to play ball and goes for it. There you go.
Yeah, no chance on holding on to that one. Mar Diablo, I mean, he tried, but let's be real. You're not winning that fight. You just aren't. So Kyle Blevins back into the 4th place spot. That said, Diavolo does have DRS back down the pit straight. We'll see if he can maybe try to lunge back down the inside into turn 1. It'd be brave, and if I may, I think it'd be a real stupid move to go for a lunge down to the turn 1 when you're on old meetings like that and you've yet to pit, but he's predictably not going to go for it. I think that's for the best. Still have 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th, as well as 11th that have yet to make their mandatory pit stops. Battle's on for 6th.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the swap-aroos are going down between these drivers. It's sketchy as they head their way now to the 2nd sector. A little bit of contact there, wheel to wheel. Very lucky to get away with that.
That was Pablo Valenzuela Uribe running into Eugenio Bayer Virel, nearly sending both cars off the road. Luckily enough, they were able to hold it together, but you want to talk about a lunge. That was a lunge. And that, again, shows the level of talent you need to have to be able to properly wrangle these cars around this racetrack. Speaking of, it's Connor Jensen again.
Yeah, and at one point I thought that Jensen had decided to call it a race. Now he's out there on the racetrack, stopped on the outside of turn number 11. You know, Nolan, I think the last time that we got okay, he finally starts rolling. I was just going to say the last time we got the opportunity to cover a race here at the Nürburgring was for the Beer League running last season. I remember we had the onboard camera with that car being a good little trackside camera as well.
We love our unpaid volunteers offering to be cameramen from the Beer League by parking their cars up and allowing us to commandeer their onboard cameras for the last 15 minutes of a race. If you know, you know. Lawler is into the pits.
That's our race leader, our dominant race leader at that, coming down pit lane. Even depending on how things work out here in this race, I think he could come down pit lane for a couple more occasions and still be fine. Onto the soft tires. Yeah, holding on to the fast lap of the race. Really clear out of everybody pace-wise on the mediums. And he exits out with a 19-second margin to Leon Flukinger. So that is just a stunner of a drive.
Well, keep in mind, Flukinger has yet to come down pit road as well, so it's really a 35-second advantage he has to Kyle Blevins, who's going to end up being the next driver in the number 2 spot once Flukinger comes down pit road. We have 15 laps to go into the final third of this race, and yet, despite all of this time, there's not been one lap where there hasn't been at least one battle to watch on the racetrack. This is Phillip Allen and Willie Atkinson.
Yeah, so keeping our eye on these two as they battle for lucky spot P13 out there on the racetrack. Kind of on an island of their own. You have to go a couple seconds farther up the road to find Samuel Justin Ray there in the number 50 machine. So not sure if there will be an extra little bit of influence in this fight. So Atkinson going to have the time, does have the DRS heading down the start-finish stretch into turn number 1. Not going to go for the move there. I think turn 1 has been a tentative spot to get a move done if you can't get it done anywhere else. But getting moves done through there is tricky. Look at that, sweeping around the outside. Allen, I think, was very slow, but Atkinson, what a way to get it done around the outside through turn number 2. I have never.
That was a brave look, because that's an off-camera corner too, right? I mean, that is an extremely hard spot to even hold it to the racing line, let alone make a pass around the outside like that. Brilliant stuff from Willie Atkinson to get in the 13th.
Yeah, so what a move to get it done. Again, talking about the pitfalls that these drivers find themselves having to work their way around, heading through the arena section. There is no visual reference. There is none. It's like driving around a pancake as you head your way through that section of the racetrack. So to have the conviction to know exactly where the turn is and get the move done, it feels like you're about to head your way off to, you know, the sheer edge of a cliff. when you had your way through turn number 2. So that was brave. That was a gutsy move to try and get it done. And that speaks to the confidence that that driver has in their machinery. We talk a lot about what these drivers have to do, trying to get every single 10th, 100th, or 1,000th of a second that they can. You've got to be confident around a racetrack like this. It is such a driver's test that you cannot be uneasy.
Continuing to power on through this race. As of the first time all race long, there are no cars within a 1 second gap of one another. Lawler sets fastest lap of the race. What we're going to do, we're going to jump on board with Lawler for a couple laps, and as we work our way into the final laps of the 14th race here of the AHM W12 F1 Series, we'll let you feel the noise on Greenflight TV. 10 laps to go from the Nürburgring, and the battle is closing in for the number 11 spot. Keaton Jensen, Samuel Justin Ray, Willie Atkinson all wanted to do battle here with one another. Jensen holding on 5-lap old softs. On 12-lap old hards, it's Samuel Justin Ray and Willie Atkinson also on 5-lap old softs trying to mount and charge.
And see, usually we would probably give the advantage to the driver on the hards. However, because tire fall off has been rare to almost completely non-existent here, I'm not really sure if this is going to work in that driver's favor. So as we keep our eye on this fight, Samuel Justin Ray may find himself in just a little bit of trouble as we get in towards the end. If he can hold on to this spot, more power to him, but maybe a bit of an uphill climb as we get into the final 10 laps of this race.
It doesn't help the fact that his hard tires are also older than the softs all around him, which will have a mass performance upgrade. The one thing that's been keeping him in that position right now has been the fact that he's got a double DRS train going, but Atkinson doesn't care. He looks for the inside, not able to commit, nearly runs into the right rear, and he holds on for now. So the Pirelli's doing a good job on holding firm. I say that, and around goes Samuel Justin Ray in turn 2.
Yeah, and just like that, we were thinking that he just needed to survive in that fight. He did not, and so as a result, he's going to fall down to 14th. An interesting point that I do want to raise here, Nolan, talking about those drivers on the hard tires, and to a lesser extent the medium runners, although we didn't really see them struggle with it at the start of this race. Nobody on mediums out there on the racetrack currently, but for these drivers on hards, on a cool racetrack, I feel like it's not a worry of the tires overheating. It's a matter of keeping the tires in that operating window, because there's a little margin, there's a small little envelope where the tires are just right, so the mechanical grip is good. You're able to run it through on these turns just fine, maybe lean a bit more on the wheel spin, heading out of it through some of the heavy acceleration zones. Those hard tires, not that grippy, not a lot of force getting put through them compared to the soft, so it's harder to keep the tire temperatures up. I remember back in my karting days, I used to have to run on the hardest tire compounds that the company that we ran the tires on made. It's the hardest tires by far, and you'd get to the point where on a cool enough day, you'd get back from a run, and the tires would still be clammy at best. Right now, I got to wonder whether these hard tire runners are just struggling to keep those tires up to temperature, let alone having to worry about them overheating.
Well, what would you rather have, underheated tires or overheated tires? Because neither one of them is a good option to have.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like, I don't know, saying, hey, you just woke up. What would you rather do, run a half marathon or try and swim about 1,000 meters? That's it. Which one's worse? They're both kind of bad. Would you rather clean cat poo or dog poo from your freshly installed carpets?
A battle still on for 11th here. Willie Atkinson had to go evasive to avoid Samuel Justin Ray. A few laps to go, but he has since run the gap back down to Keaton Jensen. That's not the only fight we got going on as well. You also have Eugenio Bayer-Virel and Marcus Keller that are getting close. In fact, they're going side by side at turn number 1 here. Keller around the outside, and I posed the question earlier, does Keller have it in him to go for a top 5? Well, he's just made his way up to 5th.
Yeah, we knew that he was going to be on the hard charge, getting some moves done, and setting consistent laps there as well. Now in this final push towards the end of the race, certainly proving that he could have been a very strong contender had things gone just a little bit better in his favor earlier on. Last time by, Keller set a 1 minute 26.250, which is very, very consistent. Was able to set his fastest lap of the race at a 1:25.6 just a few laps prior to that. So peaking at the right time, running good. However, Jeffrey Lawler is currently in his own zip code there when it comes to pace, when it comes to out there on the racetrack running right now. His best lap is a 1:24.5, which is a full nearly second quicker than Kyle Blevins' fast lap of the race.
Well, now Keaton Jensen started to pull the gap a little bit more. Let's jump back up to keep tabs on Marcus Keller because he still has Eugenio Bayer-Virel trying to run that gap down. Closing in, by the way, on just 6 laps to go. This race has absolutely flown by us here this afternoon. It like nothing in no time flat. DRS still active for Virel, but at this point, you got to imagine that is the one thing that is keeping Virel still in this fight.
And so still keeping it very tense, trying to lay on that pressure and hope that a mistake comes out for the German. However, he has hit his marks very well in this race. The only sort of incidents that he's had weren't really ones that he caused. So Keller trying to gamble on him having some sort of mistake it's understandable. You do want to try and stay with it, keep that driver within an arm's reach, but I think that may be slightly futile as we get towards the end. Still good performance for that driver in that number 67 machine. Has fought back from a couple of setbacks here in this race, but just looking to try and bring this one home. Gotta say, here throughout this race, Nolan, we've seen many drivers find the hard limits of this racetrack. We haven't seen somebody really clobber the barrier. I think the closest we had was the incident with Krantz that ended his race. I think he may have lightly tapped it after just letting off of the brake pedal.
Still have Jensen and Atkinson ready to do battle here. These are 2 drivers that are, of course, 1 lap down as well, so no need to necessarily worry about a fuel delta for the 2 of them as DRS active for Willie Atkinson. Here he goes. He's going to have to do this the long way into the NGK chicane. Keaton Jensen trying to hold firm. Oh, hold on too much of the curb. And Jensen did a fantastic job to save that. What a pass for Willie Atkinson. But, Ron, take a look at Keaton Jensen as he got up on 2 wheels in NGK.
And trying to get the move done, goes for it around the outside, nearly ends it tears through the braking zone, and there you can see it. Oh, baby.
Boy.
Yeah, that's the problem. Look at the rotation there. He nearly fully spun that car around up on 2 wheels, flying it like a kite. Yeah, open wheel cars and curbs, I said a bit earlier on, they go together like peanut butter and cyanide. Not only is it not very tasty, it's not very healthy either. My back hurt just looking at that. That was a shot right through the car. Very lucky that he was able to keep that car going in a relative straight line.
Ironically enough, that actually probably helped him rotate through the corner a bit more effectively than had he not hit the curb at all. I mean, you saw how quick that car rotated, which is exactly what he needed when you're side by side with another car like that. That's the one instance where it actually helps.
Yeah, it did help him out a little bit, but it's still, what would you rather take, a little bit of extra rotation through the turn with the cost of having to change your underwear once you're done with this race? May find himself in a case of deja vu, as you can see right behind, trying to get a move done, and this time not going to tempt fate with side-by-side racing through the chicane.
That, of course, is a lead lap car. That is, in fact, Mario Diavolo from the number 9 spot. 3 cars with black flags for incident limits, by the way. Connor Jensen among them, Phillip Allen, and Samuel Justin Ray all have to come down to pit road before the end of this race. Jeffrey Lawler taking 4 to go with now a 45-second advantage, and nothing is going to be able to stop him from taking the win in this race.
Yeah, I said a bit earlier on, he needs a bodily temperature roughly in the 90s. I think he could run around that final lap on the pit limiter, and I think he would still potentially be able to hold on to the race win. It would certainly be a little bit tense. I'm not sure if he's planning on doing that, but he has been a machine throughout the season. He's been a machine throughout this race. However, I do not want the dominant performance of Jeffrey Lawler to, outweigh the fantastic drives for the rest of the drivers inside of the top 5 and certainly our podium. Kyle Blevins has had to fight back, was the quickest driver in practice, was able to qualify for this race in 5th. Even with a little bit of side pod damage in that opening stint, was able to make things work out very, very well. So too for Leon Flukinger, who's been very strong throughout this race meeting, was 6th quickest in the practice session, 10th in qualifying, currently running in P3. Some very strong performances have gone on under our nose as Lawler has just pulled away.
Three laps the distance in this 45-lap race. Next week will be the season finale of season number 3 of the W12 Formula One Series. That will be at the Red Bull Ring for a 53-lap affair. Slightly more on the lap counter, but that said, you and I are both familiar with the Red Bull Ring and just how rapid the lap count is there, Ron. That race is going to be fantastic. Red Bull Ring has often been regarded as one of those racetracks that you'd have to try to get a dull race there. And so far on Green Flag TV, that has certainly been true.
Yeah, I once commentated all 6 hours of a 6-hour-long GT3 race there, and the fog and the mist was a constant throughout that. It felt like I was commentating a race on, like, Silent Hill or something like that. Or it was just so eerie and creepy for that event. But outside of that, always love the Red Bull Ring. Great track to drive. However, these drivers will be in for a bit of a spook with the 3D curbs that have been not very well received, shall we say. Got the opportunity to cover the old Dallara F3 car running there a couple of weeks ago, and it was not a very good combination for those drivers. They did not enjoy the new curbs, and that has been the case for some of the drivers in the Radical SR10 ranks as well. We'll have to see how these F1 cars cope with it, but it may be a bit of deja vu to the festivities for the Austrian Grand Prix back in 2016.
Well, it'll be a fun trip regardless, as we have less than 2 laps to go. Lawler, as anticipated, has been on absolute fire so far today, but cannot discount the performance as well by Leon Flukiger. Started at 10th, the hard charger, all the way up to 7th. Up 7 spots into 3rd after starting just at the edge of the top 10.
And so good fight back through the field, getting the moves done in a race that did see a little bit of attrition to start, but has since settled down into a very smooth outing. Got to say here, Nolan, how many drivers in this 18 car pack? We can really say just 17, because I don't believe Solomon Christensen made it into turn number 1. How many of these drivers have had some sort of incident point violations? It hasn't really been too many, which, considering the dramatic nature of this race, especially from the green, it's a little bit surprising to me that these drivers were able to avoid the incident points in the way they did and have done.
There's been a handful, but it's mostly fallen into kind of the same few suspects that have been struggling all night long that have been having those mistakes, which it makes sense, right? I mean, the guys, the big hitters up at the front, like Lawler, like Keller, they're not going to be having too much of an issue here. And I think it's going to be a similar situation when we go out to the Red Bull Ring, because the Red Bull Ring is also pretty nasty when it comes to incident points.
Yeah, no, the track limits around there are painful, I think, is really the only word that you can sum it up. I think it was either 2023 or 2024 when there was about 80 seconds worth of time penalties that were applied hours after the checkered flag. That's going to be a real interesting race to round off this season, but I think we're going to see the same cast of characters up at the front of the field, especially at the very north end. Jeffrey Lawler about a sector away from completing what has been a dominating race win.
Lawler making his way to the final few corners now, hits the final DRS zone, and he has led every single lap today. No contest from behind. He will take the race. He'll take this race home and get the walk-off here at the Nürburgring Grand Prix. Strecke takes yet another win on the series. What a drive for Lawler, leading every lap.
Yeah, dominant with a capital D. It was mightily impressive for him, as we're waiting to see Kyle Blevins. He's heading his way through turn number 8 right now. He still has half a lap left to go. Race winner came across the stripe and is probably already doing donuts. Second place is still trying to head his way into the final sector right about now. That really underscores how large of a gap that was at the very end.
It will end up being 6 cars on the lead lap by the end. You see a lot of gravel being kicked up all of a sudden by Kyle Blevins. Evidently somebody's had a spin there on the final lap. Kyle Blevins will come through and he'll take a well-earned second place. What a drive.
Yeah, there it is, P2 for him at the very end. That's going to be P3 when it's all said and done for a driver who was looking to finish in second. Leon Flukinger ends up in P3. So good drive at the end of that race for them, as just waiting for a few more cars to come across the stripe to round off this second to last race of the season. These drivers still trying to get a grips to this combination. There's yeah, I mentioned it right at the start how in the past 16 years in Formula One, the Nürburgring has only been a part of the Grand Prix schedule 3 times, those being in 2011, 2013, and 2020. It's not really a track that people remember, being a part of recent F1 calendars. It's an odd one. It feels like this car is almost a little bit too large for this track in a way.
It's one of those weird enigmas, right? It's often been known for the Nordschleife layout back to the 60s and the 70s, but as we come home by almost a minute in just 45 laps, Jeffrey Lawler takes home the race win this afternoon. Kyle Blevins, number 2 on the grid. Leon Flukiger will finish this race off in third. Pablo Valenzuela Uri will be in fourth. Marcus Keller finishes things off in fifth, with Eugenio Bayer Virel down in sixth. 1 lap down will be Frankie Franchica, as well as Mark Samad, Mario Diavolo, and Alec Hinchcliffe.
And looking through the back half of the pack, Willie Atkinson ends up 2 laps down in 11th. Keaton Jensen will be in P12, finishing this race in 13th when all said and done. The number 43 car, that being Philip Allen, with Samuel Justin Ray coming across a stripe directly behind him there in P14. Willis Gomez, who was put through the test throughout the night, he ends up in 15th. Connor Jensen will be in 16th after dropping out and running into some difficulties throughout. Harry Krantz did not see the checkered flag. He ends up in 17th. Solomon Christensen had some drama right at the start. And Edgar Acevedo did not even take to the grid to get this race up and rolling. Rounds out the 19 cars that are classified here at the end of tonight's race.
What a wild afternoon that we had. A stellar race that had battles almost all the way throughout. Let's get a rundown and give a chit-chat in here with the drivers to finish this race, numbers 1, 2, and 3. And we'll start things off first and foremost with Jeffrey Lawler, the Nexus Esports driver, coming home, crushing the performance once again for the defending champion. Jeffrey, what a drive this afternoon. Talk us through the 45 laps of the Nürburgring, because you looked like you were just on a time attack session out there.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it just comes down to me trying to see how fast I can go before I crash. But yeah, the rears are definitely the biggest issue here. It seemed like with all the low-speed traction zones. So there's a few moments there of trying to keep it straight. I actually tried to use my battery on the last lap to go for the fastest lap again, and I almost crashed. So I tried to keep it interesting as much as I could, but maybe next time I do a 2-stop or something. But it was nice to drive though.
It certainly looked like you were having a real fun time out there. Obviously, with you having the championship locked up as of 1 week ago, it makes it relatively easy coming into these last couple races. Does you having the championship in hand change your mindset in these last couple weeks, or is it just go out and see what you can do as always?
For me, I just always try to go as fast as I can. So as far as mindset, I'd say no. But maybe the mindset would be different if it was a bit closer with somebody with the champ. Maybe not trying to ride the limit every time. But that's pretty much the same mindset I'm going to keep for next week as well. Just try and go fast every lap.
Looking forward, the Red Bull Ring, one final race to go. What's your game plan as we swing out to Austria?
Well, last time I did the Red Bull Ring in a Formula car, I was taken out turn 1. So I think the biggest goal of Red Bull Ring is not getting anybody in your DRS. So trying your hardest to get away in the first 3 laps, I think, is the plan.
Well, we'll wish you the best of luck when we go racing next time out for one final trip. Congratulations on taking yet another win this season, and we'll hopefully see you again 1 week from now at the Red Bull Ring.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Lawler coming home number 1. And Ron, you have managed to catch up with our second place finisher here this afternoon, Kyle Blevins.
Yeah, that I have. Kyle Blevins now joining us here in the broadcast booth. Kyle, welcome in. Congratulations on that second place finish. That looked like a slightly sweaty evening here at the Nürburgring. How was it trying to cope with this very challenging racetrack?
It was pretty fun. I had damage in the first stint from the turn one shenanigans. So I had to drive that whole first stint with left-sided damage. So it was really just management. The tires were wearing down pretty fast, so just trying not to spin out. There's a lot of it.
I do want to ask you about that damage during the first stint because we locked eyes on it on the side pod of the car. How is that affecting everything to do with that stint of the race? Because we did see the pace start to drop down a little bit. What was it? Was it a matter of a little bit of oversteer, a little bit of understeer? How exactly was it affecting you in that portion?
It feels like it mostly affects your straight line speed and then maybe like your high speed corners. But definitely more straight line speed than cornering.
Yeah, sort of like dragging a parachute right behind you and then through the turns, it just throws the balance completely off. But hey, it's still P2 for you at the end of this race. Do want to ask you about the next round of the championship. We're going to be heading to the Red Bull Ring in 1 week's time. What are your thoughts heading there?
That'll be a DRS train. But it'll be a lot of fun. I think the times will be a lot closer just because the track's shorter and DRS has a bigger impact.
Yes, it certainly is going to be a DRS race. I'm not sure if we could say the term DRS train before those ground effect regulations came in the year after. But either way, Kyle, thank you for joining us here in the broadcast booth. And before we let you go and celebrate this second place run, we'll let you give any thank yous or shout outs.
Thanks to Green Flag TV. I appreciate you guys coming over here. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you running in this event as well. Kyle, we will see you in 1 week's time here in this series when the championship rocks up to the Red Bull Ring. But I guess we'll probably see you off in the beer league in some slightly slower Formula cars before then.
And a little bit more inebriated.
Hey, you know, it's that Knock Hill track can be a little bit dividing, so some people may need a little bit of alcohol in their system to cope. Kyle, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the very near future here on Green Flag.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Kyle Blevins, our P2 finisher. Nolan, I'll pass the mic back off to you.
And moving on down to the number 3 spot on the day, it is going to, of course, be on the likes of Leon Fluktiger coming home number 3 on the afternoon with an absolutely fantastic comeback drive. Leon, talk us through the afternoon because starting 10th up to 3rd, not a feat that many drivers can boast to. What a run.
I mean, it wasn't that difficult to do. Everybody in front of me crashed.
Overall, it had to have been a fun afternoon. I mean, you were fighting with Kyle Blevins for quite a bit there for the number 2 spot throughout, in fact, most of the race. Talk us through that one.
And that was fun. Lap 1, trying to avoid all the chaos from then on. First, trying to catch up to Kyle. He had damaged the first stint, so I had a bit of pace advantage.
Well,
and then fucked up the strategy a little bit and paid it too late.
Well, there's only one race left to go here, and it's, of course, going to be at the Red Bull Ring. It's not too far away geographically, but you could not find 2 Grand Prix circuits more different from each other. A lot of long straights, a lot of hard braking zones, fast lap times. What's the game plan when we swing out one final time to Austria?
Trying to stay in DRS, saving tires.
Sounds like a solid plan to me. We'll see if you can follow this one up with another podium next week. Congratulations on a 3rd place run after starting in 10th. And we'll see you next week then at the Red Bull Ring for more.
Thank you.
Leon Fluktiger coming home number 3 on the day. And Ron, that is going to be a wrap for us here this afternoon. What a way to welcome in a new league, right? And excited to see what the Apex Hunter Motorsports W12 Formula 1 Series has when we go racing one final time at the Red Bull Ring a week from today.
Yeah, slightly longer in the lap counts, but it is going to be a shorter racetrack, one that's a lot punchier than this. You think about this track, you're thinking about a test of a driver's nerve, constant turns, constant juggling. You're always having to balance something around that track. So, with the Red Bull Ring next time out, these drivers will have a bit more of an opportunity to stretch out their legs, have a little bit more fun, maybe get some overtakes done with the benefit of the DRS. We'll just have to see what that race has in store in 1 week's time.
High Tide Racing League action swings back out to Kentucky next in 24 hours. From there, the Silver Fox Racing Late Model Stock Championship hits Southern National Motorsports Park. If you want more open wheel racing, look no further than the Beer League running the Ray FF 1600s. They'll be at Knock Hill, along with much more coming up here on Green Flag TV over the coming days. Thank you all so much for joining us once again, and a big welcome once more to Apex Hunter Motorsports, hopefully the first of many to come. Once again, my name is Manolo Ramble alongside Ron Mons. Thank you all so much for joining us on what has been a fantastic race here for the Eiffel Forest. Next week, we swing to the Austrian countryside when we go racing at the Nürburgring to close out this championship.